Hello friends and welcome back. So we are going back at it again for another Make Me This. Now this time the culprit is once again Alex, and this is something that she's been thinking about for a while, but just recently the desire has been reinvigorated. She was indulging herself in some Ryland therapy or Shane therapy, don't really know, because basically all of them are synonymous with the Gucci gang now. So there she was, watching her favorite YouTubers, and then she saw them. So now, once again, it's my task to bring this to life. Now, in my opinion, these shoes are the most heinous things. They are disgusting. I looked at them on the Gucci website, and the way they had them styled, it just blows. Like, just look at this. Just look. That, to me, is not a high-class look. I mean, maybe it is, and I'm just completely out of touch with fashion. Highly likely. But that just don't do it for me. Like, no. And the shoes themselves, I think, however, part of it is the price. I think for me, the part that turns me off the most is the fact that you're paying $1,400 for these things and they don't look the part. It's like, where is my money going? They're just like beads. So, to prove my point, so my goal is to put these slides together for 1/10, nay, 1/20th the cost. That's my goal. Somewhere around $40 to $60 I want to put these together for. Now, in order to put these slides together for such a low cost, I'm going to have to come up with some novel solutions. To start with, I need to get myself on a base pair of slides, something with a very similar design, so I helped myself to the Big W slides collection and found the perfect slides. Like, the profile is on point. Then next, I thought to myself, well, the band covering your foot, that seems to be made out of a blue and red leather that they quote on their website. Now, I don't have access to, well, I could get access to leather, but staining it blue and red and getting it just right, my God, that would be an absolute nightmare. No, we're not doing that. So at Spotlight, I picked up some dark navy and red fabric. That was going to be my base for the actual arch. Let's call it the arch. That was going to be my base for the arch. And then on top of that, I then needed to locate the beads. Now the beads, that was what took the longest, my God. Finding the perfect beads on Wish took me weeks, absolutely weeks. I was searching and looking and trying to find them, and when I finally did, then of course it took weeks again for them to arrive. But all that's done now. I've got myself a base pair of slides, some fabric, some gems. I then also need to find another novel solution because the actual arch on the Gucci slides, it looks glossy because it's made out of leather, so it's got that glossy finish to it. How do I make fabric look glossy? I picked up some silicone and some mineral turpentine. We're going to get to that later, the reasons why. You must think that I'm absolutely crazy. And bonus points, since I still haven't invested in a sewing set or some needles and threads and all that sort of stuff, I'm going to have to find a way to attach all this without actually doing any stitching. That's where the silicone comes in. I am doing this project all wrong. I'm doing it the worst way possible. You're all going to judge me, but it's going to be fun nonetheless. So, with all that said, let's get started. So first up, these are the slides that I got. They are already pretty ugly, and we're just going to make them worse. Or better, I don't know. I mean, it's anyone's guess, and I think the beauty is in the eye of the beholder, so we'll see what Alex says at the end of this day. But I figured these were a pretty good starting point. They've got the correct side profile on both sides, and it even came with this fairly wide strap on top, which is going to be awesome. I'm just going to use this as something to stick it all down to because these slides, they're already holding it together well, so they're made. That's done. First thing that I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to measure all this. Actually, you know what? No, I'm not going to measure it. The reason why I'm not going to measure it is, with the Gucci slides, I basically need to create the blue, red, blue pattern in a long strip. Since I've got enough fabric that I could just make a really, really, really long strip, I'm just going to make that strip and then hold it over the shoes and cut it to the length that I need and then stick it down. So we're going to get to that later. So to start with, here is our navy fabric and then here is our red fabric. They're going to go very nicely together, creating that alternating pattern. Obviously, it's going to be a lot thinner than this, but just to give you an idea of how it's going to go, it's going to look like that. Very Gucci. First things first, I think I'm just going to give this a quick iron because I want everything nice, neat, and fresh to start with, so I'll be back in a moment. We're going to use the navy as the base because since this has two panels, two stripes either side, this is just going to be one solid piece and then I'll put a thinner strip of the red in between. So I'm going to try and work out what's the maximum width that I need for my strap, because then what I'll do is I'll cut the navy material to that width and then I'll get a smaller strip of the red and just place down in the middle. Looks like this strip is 7.5 centimeters wide, so that's how wide I'm going to have to make this material over here. Just doing some basic marking so I know where I'm actually cutting. We can't fly too much by the seat of our pants, you know? That's how accidents happen and mistakes are made. Trimming the navy material with the scissors was easy enough because it was a thicker piece, But for the red material, and I wanted to get it thin and fairly accurate, I decided to try a bit of a novel idea, and I used a chopping board, kitchen knife, and a ruler. And I can hear all of you textile mages out there just dying. Just forgive me. Forgive the boy, he knows nothing at all. And what do you know, we've got a fairly consistent strip. Oh, I could have done a little bit better on some of those bits. Okay, some minor adjustments later, and I even broke out the vacuum cleaner to keep this work area clear. I now have my somewhat cleaned up red strip that will run all the way down the center of this dark blue one. Now, how am I going to attach this, you wonder? He just said before that he still hasn't picked up a sewing machine, and he hasn't picked up any needles or string, or thread rather. How's he gonna do it? This is where that silicone's gonna come in, mixed with a little bit of that mineral turpentine, or I believe in the States it's called mineral spirits, but either case, mineral turpentine, mineral spirits, same thing. What that's going to do is act as a thinner, because how I'm going to run this, how I'm going to get this fabric to get that glossy sort of leathery, rubbery look, how I'm going to get everything to stick together is I'm going to saturate this entire segment in a silicone mineral turpentine mix, and then I'm going to sit it out in the sun to dry. What that should do is it will bond these two layers together quite firmly and also give it a bit of a rubbery feel, rubbery texture, firm this up quite a bit so I can stick it down over the top of the slides and then make the top of them. And then it also gives me a pretty decent base for me to stick the gemstones onto later when we get round to that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move all of this outside, because my greatest recommendation to anyone out there who wants to work with silicones, mineral turpentine, or basically any sort of volatile chemical, get yourself a mask, get yourself outside, and if you're working with those sorts of chemicals, just be smart, be aware. So I picked up this 80-gram tube of silicone from Bunnings for about $9, but you can't use it just on its own. So I'm going to squeeze a decent amount into this container. I'm just using the cut-off bottom of a Coca-Cola bottle. You can use whatever you have lying around. So long as it's something sturdy that's not going to spring a leak, you'll be fine. Then to thin the silicone, I'm going to use my mineral turpentine. I didn't really measure it out here. I just kept pouring until it created something that was thin enough for me to use and spread evenly onto the surface. I then poured some of this mixture over the navy material and then used a paint roller to help press and work it into the fibers just to make sure it was adequately soaked through. After soaking the navy material, I grabbed my red strip and tried to lay it down the center as close as I could, and then poured more of the silicone mixture over the top, once again using my paint roller to press it all into the fibers and smooth out the top surface. After thoroughly soaking both layers of the material, I then left this out in the sun to dry for about 30 minutes to an hour, or until all of the turpentine had evaporated away and hardened up the silicone. Alright, so it's taken a little bit longer than I thought it would, because as fate would have it, the glorious sunny day was interrupted by a sudden downpour, which I didn't realise for the first maybe 10 minutes or so, and this got rather saturated, so I had to bring it inside, hang it up in the bathroom, then the sun came back out, had to re-hang it up on a clothesline, and as a result, we now have a bit of puckering on the surface, because I don't think the silicone had dried before it got wet, and that water seems to have lifted it off in certain places. It's nothing that I can't fix, or otherwise, when I stick all the gemstones on top, it should completely hide that, so I'm not too concerned. With the fabric now dry, I cleaned up the edges with some scissors. This was made a lot easier now that it had been embedded with the silicone, because it behaved more like a thick paper versus a fabric. Since I hadn't taken any measurements, I just cut 2 strips roughly to size and then used a number of small modifications just to trim it down to the perfect size to fit over the top of the Big W slides. It probably took a lot longer than it should have, but really, what do you expect from a man without a plan? I mean, really. After all that, I was left with 2 strips of fabric, which I could then glue down on top of the slides. So since I can't really trust which glues are actually going to stick to this material and this material, I'm going to go with good old reliable hot glue. So let's just let that warm up for a second. It's not quite there yet. I'm going to run a bead of hot glue along there, attach the first side, the other way. Let's not stuff up that early into the game. Going to stick that side down, and then I'm basically going to pull it back and then run strips, roll it along, pressing it down flat, and then move along to the next section, run some strips all the way down. Continuing this along the band until I reach the other end, then I'll do another line down the end and clip it shut, hoping that will stick and hold. Let's pray. I'm gonna call that a success. All right, part 1. So far, going to plan. We have stuck that down. That almost looks kind of legitimate. So I'm going to leave this one over to the side to cool. Hopefully I don't stuff up number 2. Okay, you know what? I do not think I'm going to be using any other glues besides hot glue from now on. That was supremely easy. I cannot even begin to describe how easy that was. I was thinking I'd use some sort of glue where I just have to lay it down and then set it aside to dry for 30 minutes. I mean, this has been 5 minutes time. It's done and it's dry all at once. That's fantastic. So, if Alex wasn't so fond of the sparkling lifestyle, I think I could almost call this done right off the bat. On camera, the slight imperfections are not coming across. Unfortunately, the surface is a little bit dotted and speckled because of the issue with the rain and all that sort of stuff happening before. But if not for that, this is a pretty close approximation of just your standard Gucci slides without the crystal studding. But we're not about half measures here. No, sir. We're going the full distance. We're going to make sure that these are glittering and sparkling and putting those unicorn slides, you know the ones, those unicorn slides to shame. Where are my gemstones? So I found the best way to attach the gems is putting the hot glue directly to the stones and then sticking them onto the actual fabric or shoe arch, whatever you want to call it. That seemed to yield a cleaner result, and to make sure that I got the spacing more or less correct, I used a hand-drawn grid on a little piece of paper. We ain't doing nothing fancy around here. I did run into a small issue, however. The gems on the original Gucci slides are fairly tightly packed, but doing a bit of quick maths, I found out that I would have needed roughly 240 odd beads. At the time I ordered the gems, I hadn't done these calculations and I only got 200 of them. So I had to make some modifications and I've made a slightly less dense gem load on my shoes, which in future I might be able to rectify by buying a suitable amount of gems. Despite that, I powered on, sticking roughly 60 or so gems on per shoe, giving a grand total of 120 gems for the 2 slides. And after sticking them all down, you should end up with these glorious slides costing all of $40 in comparison to the $1,400 on offer by Gucci. This is a great way to stick the middle finger to the big brands. This is the way to go. If you're on a budget but you still want slides that look fly, just do this. Some Wish, some hot glue, and some fabric and silicone. You are done. They're basically indistinguishable, wouldn't you say? Now, this is just my opinion, and I've been at this for a good couple of hours, so I feel like I'm giving them a better rap than they deserve. The true test will be to see if Miss Pretty Pastel Please enjoys her new slides. So I'm gonna grab her. She keeps peeping out of her room and I have to chase her away, and she's definitely thrown some shade at me for not having enough gems packed onto each slide. That's not my fault. I kept telling her it's not my fault. But now that they're complete, I'm wondering if her perception has changed.
Oh my god!
Good.
Oh my god!
Are they sparkling? Look how much they sparkle, though. Right?
They're not sparkly enough, Sam.
Yeah.
There's not enough gems.
We talked about this. We talked about this. I bought 200 of these things and I thought surely that would be enough. I drastically
Jeffree Star would not stand for this.
Jeffree Star doesn't have to use Wish. He could just buy Swarovski crystals in bulk.
I think he could buy diamonds, to be honest.
Yeah.
Real
or he
diamonds.
could just go to the Gucci store and buy
Maybe
them
he
pre-made.
could just buy Gucci, actually.
Yeah, I think he would. I don't think Jeffree Star, of all people, would sit down on his tuchus and put this together, spending his valuable time doing a little
You know
craft
what?
work.
If you get popular enough on YouTube, maybe you could convince Jeffree to sit down and do a Gucci DIY collab with you. You could go into his wardrobe and like rifle through it and be like, "Oh, Jeffree, I'm gonna make this one. Can I borrow it?" And then you can take his real Gucci, and then you can like,
Picks up Birkin bag.
Yeah. Well, yes. I think from a distance, they definitely, they look about accurate. I'm really, really impressed by these little gems, to be honest.
Honestly, everyone, if I could give you a recommendation,
They're
these
so cool.
gemstones that I came across, these are the best gemstones
They're
I've
awesome.
actually got from Wish so far.
Well, yeah, I haven't even seen gems like that in like Spotlight, like craft stores. They're really, really good.
Literally the best.
Hang on.
But only because of how much they cost.
They don't say good. You didn't put Gucci on the side. What are you
Excuse
doing?
me, how do you expect me to put Gucci on the side?
I don't know. Well, write it with a permanent marker at least, something. Just put. You gotta put Gucky or something on it.
You know what? If you,
No,
you don't want your slides,
I do want them.
That's fine.
I do want them. I think
they're
they're
gonna
sick.
be my little hand warmers now.
I love them. I think they're really, really cool. There's people out there that would probably roast you alive. You can't copy Gucci.
I mean, I can, and I did. Thank you.
Suck
Thank you.
on that.
Case and point solved.
You did a very good job. I'm very, very
Ow.
I'm very proud of you.
Me too. Not to toot my own horn, but this was a test of my patience and oh yeah, put them on.
Am I Ryland yet? Wait, give me the
Hold
other
on.
one. Am I good enough for Shane? Would Shane love me now?
Welcome to the fashion world.
You're amazing! I'm high five.
Boom! So, looks like those Gucci slides were an absolute hit. Alex is already walking off down the hallway. I think she's going to show them off to Dan, and he's going to be beside himself with envy. He's going to need a pair too. All three of us need a pair. So, that's been it for today. I hope you enjoyed following along. I hope all of you can get something out of this, and if you too want to stick the middle finger to Gucci, you know... You too can have your own Gucci slides made for $40 and with love. So that's it from me. Hope you enjoyed it, and I would love to see you all next time. Bye!